Hey guys, I had the honor and privilege of being invited to speak at an ostomy education event in Vancouver, BC for World Ostomy Day this past October 1st, 2016. I was actually invited by the former director of Ostomy Canada, Andrea Manson, who prefers to be called Andy, to speak about ostomy clothing, which I promptly agreed to. This trip was my first to British Columbia, and I was actually excited to see the natural beauty of this province all the way on the other side of Canada, and believe me, I was not disappointed. I decided to pack fairly light for this trip since I was only going to be there for a few days, so that meant no laptop or anything I didn't think would be crucial for the presentation or the visit in general. Now, my ostomy supplies were separated into two groups. I had my emergency supplies, which I would keep in my backpack pretty much everywhere I went. And then I had my regular stock, which would stay in my carry-on luggage back at the hotel room. My emergency kit didn't include a pair of scissors because I tend to carry moldable wafers in that kind of kit just as a matter of convenience, although I did have a pair of scissors in my stock supplies that I kept in the hotel room. Now, my departing flight was scheduled to leave at 11 a.m. on Friday, September 30th, so my last appliance change was done on the previous day. I had requested an Uber that morning, and they showed up within minutes, which is pretty impressive, so I was off to the airport at that point. Now, Toronto Pearson International Airport is actually pretty nice. It's not mind-blowing like some of the other airports that I've been to, but it's clean and it's comfortable. And one of the things that I noticed actually for the domestic flight process, it just seemed way more relaxed compared to the international flights as far as like going through security and stuff like that. The security was really super easy to get through. I didn't even mention my ostomy. It was never asked about. So, it was quite a bit different from my previous experience with full body scanners that, would find my stoma regardless. And then I had to go through, explosive residue tests and stuff like that. Now, we left Toronto in a Boeing 737-800, which is a medium-sized plane. It has two rows with three seats in each row. Now, I was actually fortunate enough to have the window seat on my flight to Vancouver, and I was actually able to pick that seat during the online check-in process. So the view is like absolutely stunning, the entire way there. I did use the bathroom once during the flight to Vancouver, not really out of necessity, but more out of curiosity. And my God, was it ever tiny. Emptying my bag was a little challenging, mainly because there wasn't even enough room to turn around, let alone kneel. I did manage to use the bathroom, without much trouble, but I'd really hate to think of what, kind of challenges that anyone who might be even slightly overweight might have to face in that kind of tight space. Now, this flight didn't have any screens in the back of the seats for in-flight movies, so all of that stuff had to be done through your phone or tablet, which is, a little disappointing. But I had such an incredible view that, rather than watching movies, I put on some music, I fired up Google Maps, which I had preloaded maps, ahead of time because I had the data connection. And then I turned on my GPS, and I knew exactly where we were in the air. Now, just as a note, not all airlines will allow you to use GPS during flights. WestJet happens to be one of the ones that, doesn't outright ban them. Now, flying across Canada was such a beautiful experience. I mean, I was blown away by all the farmland that we have, most of which we actually use to grow food for livestock, not us. But it was, really cool to spot a lot of the small towns and cities while tracking my flight on Google Maps. As we flew over the mountains and into BC, I just realized how much of Canada's natural beauty I was missing by living in the Toronto area. The mountains were just surreal. I can't imagine how amazing it must be, to be hiking over and around them. But, maybe someday I will. Now, after about 4.5 hours, we finally landed in Vancouver International Airport, but not before I caught a bird's eye view of the greater Vancouver area. Now, as beautiful as the scenery is in this area, I honestly couldn't help but notice how much industry dominates this landscape. Now, Andy picked me up at the airport. In the airport, honestly, it reminds me of some of the casinos we have here because of all the native artwork and stuff like that. But after that, we headed off to see her clinic. So the Ostomy Care and Supply Center, which was actually founded by Andy's mother, Helen Manson, is located in New Westminster in BC, which isn't very far from the airport. Andy had taken me for a tour of the clinic, and she introduced me to the other nurses that were there. She also showed me this display case that was full of older ostomy appliances, many of which had to be basically handmade out of necessity. And it really hit me that, I'm extremely fortunate to have access to the supplies that I do. And I couldn't imagine wearing an improvised ostomy appliance, basically made out of spare parts found around the home. She also showed me some of the products that they carry, and I actually picked up on a few brands that I wasn't even familiar with. I will say that this kind of ostomy clinic is really unique, and I'm not even sure if we have anything like it in the Toronto area, but I'm really glad that Ostomates in the Vancouver area have access to such an amazing team of nurses who really do care about their patients. Now, after my visit to the clinic, Andy and I headed out to Grouse Mountain in North Vancouver. Grouse Mountain is such a beautiful place, and it offers a lot of things to do. Now, we took a 6-minute long cable car, which they call the Sky Ride, up to Peak Chalet, and that was about 2,800 feet up. Now, the view from up there is just absolutely amazing, and I'm sure there are many sunrises and sunsets to be enjoyed throughout the year from that height. We walked around and we actually got to see Grinder and Kula, who are two grizzly bears that make their home in the mountains wildlife refuge. Both of the bears were actually found as orphans in 2001, and they've been living there ever since. It's pretty incredible how large these animals are, and even more so when you consider that they aren't even the largest of the bears out there. After spending time watching the grizzlies, we headed over to watch a lumberjack show, which is actually really entertaining. It's pretty obvious that these guys love what they do.
Timer ready? 1, 2, go! All right, come on, guys, let's cheer on Billy. He's making the climb. Gotta do it under 17 seconds. I don't know if we can do it. Bring it up.
Wow. We said goodbye to the mountain. We took another beautiful cable car ride down. And then for dinner, we decided to check out a small vegan Vietnamese restaurant called Paradise. And it most certainly was. It's actually really nice to find an entirely vegan restaurant because I can literally close my eyes and pick something out of the menu without having to worry about what's in it. We decided on number 40, which is the vegan chicken with red rice, along with a salad and tofu, which actually resembled more of a coleslaw. Andy ended up ordering a soup that we shared together with everything else since the serving sizes were pretty large. The meal was so delicious, and I honestly wish I had a place like this near me. But, if you're ever in Burnaby, I highly suggest trying this place out. After dinner, Andy dropped me off at the hotel that I was staying at. And I was actually lucky enough to have been upgraded to the King Suite, which had an office area. There was a small living room with a TV, as well as a bedroom with a TV in there. So that was pretty sweet. So after having a shower, I ended up changing my appliance, and then I just decided to watch a few movies before bed. The great thing about the hotel I was staying at is that the education event was being held actually just a few floors down. So the next morning, I made my way to the event during the registration. And that way I was able to check out some of the vendors. I could, chat a bit. And I also got to meet Brandy actually for the first time. And she would be the one I would be presenting with. I've never met Brandy before, but I'm actually glad that I had a chance to work with her on this presentation. It was really great to see what other products she had offered through her company, Joey's, and she had a table set up for the event there. Now, our presentation started at around 10:30 in the morning, and we spoke about clothing options for ostomates. It was really amazing to be able to speak to what I would guess would be around 250 people, pretty much about ostomies. Now, if you're interested in seeing the video that I made for our presentation, you can check it out in the link that I've put in the description. I stayed until the event was over, and I had a chance to speak with reps from B-Braun, from Convatec, from Ostabelt, and a few others. I also had a chance to talk with fans of my website and YouTube channel after the event, and it's always wonderful to hear from people and to hear what's helped them through their journey, and I learn a lot through that. Now for dinner, Andy took me and a few of the ET nurses she works with, along with their spouses, to a place called Nuba in Gastown. Now before going to Nuba, we actually walked around town for a bit, and I got to see more of Vancouver. Now, Nuba is a Lebanese restaurant that serves many vegan dishes, and I was actually totally blown away by their food, starting with the ginger beer that they served. We ended up ordering a platter that basically had like mixed dishes. So they had like a crispy cauliflower tossed with lemon and sea salt, served with a bit of tahini. They had a garden falafel. We had hummus with pitas and a lot more. It was so delicious, and I'd love to learn to make recipes like this. So after dinner, Andy drove me around town, showing me more of the city. We had a chance to actually visit Stanley Park, where I was able to snap off a few photos before it got too dark. But before long, it was time to get back to the hotel, where I watched a few more movies before hitting the sack. Now, my flight out of Vancouver was scheduled for just after 11 a.m., so, it was an early morning for me. Andy drove me to the airport, and I got to see many of the mountains once more on our drive there. I thanked her, and then I left for my gate. Now, my flight home once again had me at a window seat, which I was really happy about. And I was actually able to take more photos and videos of the flight home, and I really enjoyed the scenery for the entire flight. So Toronto was actually really rainy as we landed, but I was actually really happy to be home again. Of course, I was totally looking out for Canada's Wonderland, which I did catch a glimpse of on our descent. Overall, this was an awesome trip, and had me meeting so many different wonderful people. I want to give a special thanks to Andy and her staff, especially Arden, who was unfortunately out of the country during my stay, but she helped to coordinate a lot of this trip. And I absolutely can't forget Ruth, who took some wonderful photos of the presentation. So thanks a lot, guys. So guys, I hope you liked this video. Definitely more to come. I'm sure this won't be the last time I get to travel and talk about ostomies, so stay tuned for more. Take it easy.